Hello YouTube, this is David from Team Fanboy, and I thought today I would show you a deck profile on the Messiah deck that you've probably been seeing a little bit in the channel the past few days. This is my own personal deck, so I consider it my main deck when playing Vanguard. I know like mains and stuff in Vanguard is a bit of a contentious point, but I don't know, I personally just really like Messiah. So I've gone through at length in the past why I really love the deck. Just the things that you can do with it, even back with GBT3 were quite fun, and it really sort of like got me into competitive Vanguard in a way. And if you remember my recipe from last year, that came shortly after making top 3 at Telford at the UK Nationals, and that was probably one of my proudest achievements in the game so far, and hopefully I want to do more with this deck in the future as well. But anyway, let's get on with the profile. So starter, Neon Messiah. You only run 6 grade 3s in this deck. That's partly a consistency issue. I haven't come into too many situations where running 6 grade 3s has become a problem. Generally, like, because you run Alter Ego Neo and Alter Ego, your rides are usually quite good regardless. So even if you draw one or the other, and you can't fish out the preferred ride with Destiny Dealer, this can fix that in some cases. Also, it's just guaranteeing the fact that you have stride fodder for your second stride is also very important, especially considering you do only run 6 grade 3s. I have tested Orion. A lot of people have made the change to Orion. I still prefer this for the reason that it does guarantee your stride. I do like the extra 5k though that Orion gives any unit. It can really help push for numbers. The draw is just a bit too random in my opinion. Obviously, it can't be exactly the same as this, but I still prefer this personally. But I understand if you run Orion. For the grade 3s, you want to run 4 Alter Ego Neos. I wanted to hold off on making this video for a little while just because I was waiting for the SPs to arrive in the mail, and also I wanted to also wait on the reveal for Ideal Ego, the new grade 3, which was just announced earlier today. Before passing judgment on this. This is still your preferred ride in probably about 90% of the matchups going forward, even with Ideal Ego. Ideal Ego's utility is far more useful on Rearguard and in one specific matchup on Vanguard Circle. Most other matches you want to still be keeping with Alter Ego Neo, just because this just fixed a lot of problems that started to arise as time went on with Alter Ego, the original. The fact that you don't need rearguards anymore to have out on the field already to guarantee locks is always very nice. The more consistent drawing that this gives you for lower cost, instead of just blowing out your soul on first stride to just get a massive hand that will hopefully last you the game. This can just give you 2 cards basically at the end of every turn, which can really just keep you going in the advantage game. Especially considering you can be sort of forced to, in this meta in particular, you can be forced to go in on a lot of resources. Some games, this helps you sort of just recover from maybe in some ways extending your resources maybe beyond the point where you're feeling a bit risky in that regard. But at the same time, this card's just really good. I really like it's just it's a simple upgrade to what old Alter Ego used to do, or what old Alter Ego did for the deck, and just sort of makes it just so much nicer to play with. And then obviously to Alter Ego, this card's still really nice, especially if you're striding Sabreeze, because of the Messiah restriction on the stride skill, which is something that's also quite nice about Ideal Ego, the fact that the stride skill isn't limited to a Messiah to trigger. This is still really good. You know, no matter which alter ego you ride, you've got good plays coming your way. But obviously, Alter Ego Neo is the preferred ride in the deck. Free Arrester. You can play 4. 4 is still fine. This card's still nuts even after all the time it's been out. Just the fact that you can just swing for 2k and just control the board in any which way you like, even if it's just locking your own cards, that helps set you up. The utility that it just gives is quite good. I'd still say out of all the grade 2s, it's probably one of the weaker choices now, just because there are a lot of good cards. A lot of good grade 2s that Messiahs have, especially with Mega Messiah coming out as well. But I want to go into my thoughts on the new Messiah stuff in a separate video, so hopefully that'll be coming to you soon. Next up, for Lady Fencer, this girl is amazing. Just the fact that she's pretty much always an 11k swinger on board whenever you want her to be. Basically, when you call her, she's 11. Even early game, because her 2k skill isn't GB restricted. So like if you ride like say Arrester Messiah or one of your other Messiah grade 2s and then call her, she'll be an 11k beta, which can really help against decks that run 10ks, especially considering a lot of decks are running 10k grade 2s that have skills now as the game sort of like progresses into the end of G era. The mandatory soul charge is a bit annoying sometimes, but generally it helps keeps up with all the costs of your turns, which can be really nice. I feel sometimes that you run the risk of overextending with this card, especially with your counterblast, because most of your counterblasts or every game goes towards just spamming her skill, and you can't always refund it with sacrifice. But I think the trade-off is you get a solid beat stick really that can also just help set up your combos. I sort of want to talk about these two cards together, Natalia and 2 Awaking. This pick is totally optional. You don't have to run Awaking Messiah. But Natalia at the moment I still say is like really necessary. Just the numbers that you can create with this is stupid, and the way that these two interact but it harkens back to the old Lady Battler combos where you would stack all the power from sacrifices onto the Lady Battler, swing with her, unlock Awaking, stand it back up, and you'd have like another massive swing. It sort of harkens back to those days, and I really like that. Just that's my own sort of personal playstyle. Playing 2, it can, I have toyed around with just like playing 3 of this and bumping this up to 3. I've found that I've been missing this in some games, although ever since going down to 2 I've been missing this as well, so I don't know, it's a level of preference, and sometimes it's matchup dependent as well, but generally this is part of like a big blowout combo with Natalia, and that's really nice. Just talking a bit separately about Natalia on its own though, just the fact that it can't be locked by effects is really good. It can still be locked for cost though. That's a really important thing I want to state, because it also does lead me on to the Sentinels, which are Prayer Child. This card is a lot better than people are rating it, in my opinion. Most of the time you're on a Messiah Vanguard from turn 1. The only card that you can ride that isn't a Messiah is Fencer, and to be honest, like perfect guarding a grade 2 isn't always a relevant issue, and most of the times you are going to be on a Messiah grade 2 anyway, so it's not too much of an issue. I like it because you can use it with this, because the cost is very different from the effect. Like Natalia says specifically, you can't lock it by card. Effects costs are very different. If it's in the bracket, look at the card specifically. If it's in the bracket, it says like lock one of your rear guards. If it's not part of the effect, which is after the brackets, then you should be able to lock it. Cards that other cards that Link Joker have that involve locking other rearguards as part of the costs include Lady Battle of the Gravity Well, Demon Maxwell, Alter Ego Messiah, Grade 3, this version, not this. Cards that can't lock it, Alter Ego Neo, Lacus Krina, just watch out for those sorts of interactions, but if it's part of the cost, you should be able to lock it. The extra draw that this card, that this Dropstone skill gives you as well, can really help fix hands in a time where, like, say you want to use 2 of these and you don't have good cards in hand. Using the first can sometimes get you the card that you need to make the second one much more viable. And personally, in my opinion, if you're not running this perfect guard, then your matchups against Kagero become a lot harder to win, as Denial Griffin is a very relevant threat against Link Joker, like very relevant. Especially Messiah is these cards just get completely shut down and you're not able to extend your combo past that. So just by using this will help you set up your lock 5 for Harmonics, which basically is your win con against Kagero, because if you can't beat them with Harmonics, then just say GG to your opponent. So definitely please run this. I know the countercharging from Cosmo Reef is still relevant in some cases, but I'd say trading that off to having a much consistent and more reliable way to defeat one of your worst matchups is well worth the loss of resource consistency. Okay, next up is for Destiny Dealer. I've seen some playing 7 grade 3s, 3 Destiny Dealer. I prefer the 4 just because you have more grade 1s to play around with. This can help just fix your hand early on. The caveat, you are only running 6 grade 3s, so you running 4 Stride Fodder is sort of like a necessary sort of requirement at that point. So yeah, definitely run 4 if you're running 6. I will say once Ideal Ego comes out, you will be going back up to 7 grade 3s, I think. Although, like I said, still going to go through that in a separate video. Next up is for Sacrifice Messiah. Just basically your consistency. It's part of your main combos with Fencer and Dunamis as well. The counter charge that this gives you just keeps you going so much more than just one turn. You can really blow out your counter blast quite easily, like I was saying with Fencer. Sometimes you run the risk of overextending a little with her, but this helps pull you back as well. So it's still very necessary. I'm not sure whether it's worth putting this down to 3 just because the consistency it does give you, but considering that the next card, Dunamis, is really good, then it's really up to sort of your own testing, sort of your own comfortability with the deck, whether you feel comfortable running more of this over, or you feel like running 4/4, but then you'd have to look at other areas of ratio with the deck. Dunamis is just a silly card. The fact that it just gives you more attacks and just combos so perfectly with Fencer is just pretty insane, really. The Soul Blast, if you just keep going in with Fencer with this, the Soul Blast cost is rather minimum. Although with the soul charging that Fencer gives you, you run the risk of decking out more. But hopefully, if you're swinging a lot at your opponents, you should be beating them before you have to worry too much about decking out, although some matchups do come down to it, so just be wary of it in that regard. I'm still finding ways of which I could maybe play the 4th Dunamis, although I'm sort of hesitant to make too many drastic changes to the ratios yet, just because I feel right now it's rather consistent, it's working quite nicely for what it does. Next up are the triggers, and we're running 4 Blink. Obviously it's your Messiah crit, you kind of have to run it. Paradigm Shift for the recyclability. This card's been necessary since it came out, pretty much. Just the fact that you can just put it back in whenever just makes Harmonics so much better. Just having more crits in decks obviously makes Harmonics a lot more of a deadly card. I run 2 just normal crits, just so the ratio is like 10 to 4. I've considered going back up to 4 draw trigger. You can certainly do it that way. Just 8 crit 4 draw. But I found personally for my testing that the 10 crit build's quite nice. The 2 draws can help you sort of like recover resources when you need them, while not getting you closer to deck out as fast as playing 4 draws can. And having more crits in the deck, obviously, in those games, so like, there are games where you just like see like half of your crits like early game and like don't do anything with them. So your later game is sort of like a lot harder to finish your opponent off with the Harmonics. So just having more crits in that regard can really just help with that in that situation. And obviously like 2 draws after that, just because like the skill of just moving to soul, giving more soul resources is always nice, and then just adding more numbers onto your units is also very nice. And lastly, to round the main deck off, just 4 Karinas. The countercharging is nice when you need it. It is a soul resource, but like as I said, the soul with Fencer isn't as much of an issue. Generally, it's quite nice. Obviously until the new heal comes out in Stargate, which will give the counter charge or soul charge option, then this is still your go-to. So that was the main deck. Onto the G zone, and I like to think there are some interesting choices in here, but pretty standard fare. The Saltus is like my personal first ride. I prefer it over Flageolet. I don't actually have Flageolet in the G zone anymore. Oh, just want to quickly touch on, I don't run Black Dwarf in the deck anymore either. That's for the pure reason that for grade 2s, I want to have rear guards that when I call them, can make just columns on their own, be 11 or 12 Ks, and just swing at the opponent that way without the need for a booster. So, it's sort of like less reliant on having a grade 1 in the back. For when you want to start going in, which you can't really do with Lady Battle of the Black Dwarf. But anyway, back onto the G zone. 2 Basaltus. The draw that this gives you, the draw that this nets you, and the sort of like the fact that you can use this to basically guarantee you can shut down both front rows, whereas before you would have had to rely on having a Lady Gunner as well in your hand. On first ride is really nice actually. Like I said, I don't run Flageolet anymore because for now, with all the cards that target circles and can like turn lock cards face up, Omega Locks have become just a touch too slow in that regard. And it's a bit of a shame that so many decks are just being just flat out given just easy ways to counter locks as a mechanic, but generally it's like, I guess it's about time. Link Joker's been around for long enough that some decks just need that counter. Basaltus helps you recover hand, it helps secure boards. Depending on when you stride it, you don't always need to stride this first. If you say set up a G-Guard, going into Amnesty first stride can be better, or like one of the other choices, just because it can basically do the same thing for you. And still get the GB2 triggered. Like, the important thing is that you trigger GB2 on your first ride, obviously, because you wanna aggress, but you also wanna gain those resources back. So that's why you run 2. I'll explain why I run 2, because some people run 4. I play 4 of this over 4 Basaltus. Transels has actually been it actually went from like one of my lowest rated Messiah G units to one of my highest rated. Just because, again, it goes back to the circle control aspect that's in the game at the moment. A lot of decks will have a way to just, clear up space and just locking 1 or 2 cards with a Mega Locks isn't enough, so you need a way to just flush the board with lock cards, really just pin your opponent as fast as possible, as hard as possible, while also like going in with this, you know, setting up cards that you can lock and then unlock with this guy, so that you still get the draws in the end phase. That's also really nice, and the interaction with Metalia as well is just insane. So a lot of the reasons why I really like this card now comes down to the fact that the support is sort of like caught up to the sort of playstyle that this card sort of encourages, and the general meta game as well just calls for you to run it as well, as this card will get around resist units, which we'll be seeing a lot more of with Battle Force, whereas this card wouldn't. So that's sort of like the reason I played this. I played 4 of this over, say, 4 of this. Although this is still a really good card. This just sort of like deals with wider matchups just a little bit better. And then on to, obviously, your new finisher, Harmonix Neomissai. This card is just, it's Exilix on steroids. A lot of people still run Exilix and Amnesty. I personally just run Amnesty. Exilix isn't really needed anymore in that regard. I don't know. We haven't seen the full skill for the new GR yet, so can't really confirm or deny how good that is in that regard. Maybe Exilix comes back afterwards, but still, this does pretty much everything you need to do. The only downside is that it has to unlock everything, but at the same time, if you want to just get that lock 5, the fact that this swings in at a minimum of 51,000 and the opponent can't guard this of grade 1 or higher can just end games on its own. Like I said, this is like the main way you beat Kagero. Without this card, Kagero would be probably an impossible matchup, just absolutely impossible. But with it, you have actually a fairly reasonable chance. It's still not great, but you know, you have the advantage engine to keep up in that regard. So like the last 2 stride slots, minus the Sabreeze, are the Amnesties. You could run 1 Amnesty, 1 GB8. That's more dependent on how relevant decks like Grand Blue and Pale Moon are, which they will be starting from set 14 when they actually get their evolved strides coming over into English. You can actually get it if you open enough. If you get enough heal triggers in your hand early on, you can get to the GB8 to really pressure them. But for now, just because that's not really meta relevant as it is, I would say run 2 Amnesties, just because this card is still pretty nice. Just the fact that if you G-guard into this, you guarantee your GB2 in the end phase, and you can pressure your Vanguard. You can pressure your opponent for massive numbers and crit. It can just be enough to just swing the game sometimes. And as you saw in the first match against Grand Blue, that's pretty much what happened. If you just, if you're lucky enough to hit the crits. Then finally for the G units themselves, just the Sabreeze. You're a G deck, so Sabreeze is sort of like necessary. Helps you sort of like recover resources, and a lot of the cards. Like Arrester, like Fencer, they do quite well once you get that GB1 started, so the Counterblast 2 is quite heavy, and it can sometimes burn you out quite quickly on your resources. That's probably more the case now than it was before, just because you had Chameleon back then, you had Sacrifice, which you could loot quite easily. But definitely now Sabreeze is, it's still a necessary card. Onto the G-Guards, 2 Guardians, just for the, you've still got your own deck lock combos for your G-Guards, and it's also really good against Chaos as well. Just Link Joker in general, this card's really good at just giving you solid shields, and while also sort of shutting down the Crisis and being able to still set your own plays up in a bit. So it's still nice in that regard. 2 Lacus Carina. This card's still like one of your bread and butter G-guards in that regard. The fact that it saves you in a lot of matchups, and it helps extend you to the GB8 if you're running it. which there have been situations where like during this into the GB8 could have been like fatal, but otherwise just your other stride options can just finish the game on their own in that regard as well. But she's still really good just for like securing boards if they like shuffling their rear guards around in the end phase, then this can help prevent that in that regard, and it just generally helps. And like by locking, you can do your sacrifice combos, which can power your Vanguard up, give you more counterblast to work with, and yeah, it just sets you up. And it's still really relevant. I would have said before. I would still argue that maybe you don't need the second one, especially if you're not running the GB8. Just because, like with Kagero and so many other control decks, like you don't have as many rearguard resources as you may think, so you may be running a bit low, and you don't have the necessary number to sort of like fully secure the opponent's back row, which can be annoying sometimes, especially if you've got like a Metalia just sitting there that you can't lock with this, which is a shame. But it's up to you. I think it's meta dependent. Like the G-Guard lineup for the Link Joker, like for Messiahs in particular, sort of like goes all over the place. I used to run like one of each, just for maximum situation awareness. But I don't know. I would definitely play 2 of this. I might go down to 1 of this, depending on how the meta sort of changes. How Kagero is going to be really relevant. So like this isn't as strong against Kagero because all your units are going to be dead and you don't have anything to lock. Lastly, to round out the G-Guards, Demon Maxwell. This slot can be basically exchanged for anything, really. I personally play it right now just because it still gives you shield. It still gives you decent shield. It can set up your combos for Destiny Guardian, and if you don't want to pay the counterblast for Lacus Karina or flipping that G-Guard resource, which can sometimes be just a bit too much, so just going into this can sometimes be enough. The shield is nice. This is like quite nice for just going, your opponent strides first, G-Guard with this, and it just follows into your other combo plays, which help benefit the GB2 in that regard. But yeah, you can swap it out for anything. I like Lady Healer. She's quite nice, just as a sometimes reliable, just 10k shield. Desgazan as well is pretty nice for the draw, although sometimes having the 2 locked out can be a bit harder than you think. Even with Link Joker, just because again, this is a circle control. It can sometimes be less consistent in that regard. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck profile. Like I said, I do test this deck a lot. It's I consider it my main. I spend a lot of time on it, and I'm always open to other ideas and in regards to like improving it. I don't think it's perfect yet, and with the new stuff coming in Stargate, the deck's in for a lot of changes going forward quite soon as well. I will say this: the grade 3 and 2 are really nice additions. The grade 1 not so much. I don't think it's too good. Just because of the counterblast and the mandatory soul charge that the new grade 1 does. But like I said, I want to go in more detail of that in another video, probably when the GR gets revealed as well, just to see sort of like the culmination of everything together in regards to the new Messiah. Obviously that might not just be it for Messiah, there could be like more cards revealed, like maybe commons, or obviously the new heal trigger, which you can use that in any, even if it's a Starvader or a deleter, you want to be using the new heal trigger, just because it's a more reliable way to gain your resources back. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Home for Christmas at the moment, so might not have as many matches up, but there'll definitely be like some matches between me and my brother, who also plays. So there'll be a few Messiah Loard matches coming, maybe Zodiac Time Beasts, and maybe a couple of deck profiles on those as well. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you want. Like the video, share it. I don't know. Just do whatever. David from Team Fanboy signing off.